Hello, everyone, and welcome to Latinos with a Mic. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm your host, Jennifer.
And today we are thrilled to have an incredible guest with us. As you know, we are passionate about empowering women by featuring other inspiring women on our show, and today's guest is no exception. Please join us in welcoming Rosie Noel. Rosie is a strengths coach whose passion lies in helping people fully harness their strengths to achieve their highest potential. In fact, Pace Morby once described her as the best human on the planet to reveal your true self. So Rose's insights promise to be both enlightening and actionable, and we're excited for this conversation. We hope that our listeners will walk away from this episode with valuable strategies to achieve their goals.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, Rosie.
Thank you so much. Yes, what a beautiful introduction. And yes, that Pace is very very generous with how he describes me. But
He's so excited too.
One of the first things that I wanted to know is after that amazing introduction, now who are you behind all of that, right? Like if somebody asks you just randomly, they don't know what do you do or nothing, they just see you in their stores. Who are you? What do you consider yourself to be?
If I met somebody in the store, I'd probably describe myself as a wife and a mom first, right? Before I describe anything else. And a resident of the town that I live in. And then once I started talking about work, yes, I would describe myself as a strengths coach, which is probably not the best way to describe myself, because when you hear that, you're like, do you strengths train? Like, are you a coach at a gym?
Yes,
so I probably need to find a better way to describe myself. That's evolving for me. But the reason I describe myself as a strengths coach is because I help people identify what their natural talents are, and then I help them learn how to strengthen those talents to do things like achieve their goals or overcome their obstacles and things like that. So that's why I call myself a strengths coach. I think it just, when you hear the word strengths, you think like muscles, this is more your mental muscles. Yeah.
Which is a strength for the mental muscle, like she said.
Exactly.
Yeah, but normally, unless you would describe it, nobody would think that.
Yeah.
They would just think that you're just dealing with athletes all day.
Yes.
You're like, no, that's not what it is.
I saw like Pace, for example, describe you as like a personality coach, and then Vina said mindset coach, and I think that I was just like, okay, mindset / personality / strengths coach.
Yes, I know. I haven't found a way to like marry them all together, so I'll probably experiment.
But yeah, okay, well that's great. We wanted to start just by you telling us like, how did this come about? How did you become, a strengths coach? And we read a little bit about your background, and I know somehow it ties into you deciding to, actually do this full time, because you just opened you have your own business, which I think you started not too long ago.
Yes. Yeah.
So we would just tell us about how that went about.
Yeah. So I launched my coaching business. It was my 1-year anniversary like last week. So I'm officially over the 1-year mark of being an entrepreneur. And I always wanted to work for myself, but it was something I thought I wouldn't do until later in life. I have 2 small kids. I have 2 boys that are 2 and 4. And I was like, I'll do it when I'm older and they're older, and it'll just be easier because, you're both moms. Like, it's not easy when they're little, but I don't think it's ever easy.
Exactly.
She has the little kids. I have the big kids, and it's still not easy.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've also heard the phrase little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. I get told that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something I was always interested in. I didn't think I would do it till later in life. At the time that I started my business, I was in the corporate world. So I worked at a Fortune 1000 company. We were about 10,000 employees, and I did executive coaching there and talent development. So talent development's another thing. If you're not in that HR space, I had people, when I told them I was in talent development or talent management, and they'd say, "Oh, can I send you my headshots? Like, do you know anybody that that I can go like audition for?" And I'd be like, "What are they talking about?" And then I realized that I referred to myself as a talent manager. So yes, I have these confusing terms. So talent development, talent management just meant in the corporate space, in addition to coaching, I built out learning and development programs, and I helped, whether it was entry level people help to learn and grow, or if it was our senior leaders and building out programs for them to develop as leaders. That was a big part of what I did. And so I'd been doing that for a while, and I loved that type of work, but I just wasn't loving the environment I was doing it in.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to have something you're so passionate about, like just dim that light over time, because you're in a place where it's either not fully appreciated. Like when I started working with entrepreneurs, I was like, you like mindset work? Like in the corporate space, when I would do soft skills training, I'd be like, people's eyes would glaze over, you know, I'd be lucky if they'd show up. And then, and with entrepreneurs, they're like volunteering their free time to do this, you know? And so it's been really energizing to meet entrepreneurs, because they're typically, in my experience, really invested in mindset because they recognize the value. So once I started my coaching business and working with entrepreneurs while I was still at my corporate job, I always joke, it was like, I thought I was opening the door to a closet and I expected there to be like a broom and a vacuum in there. And instead it was like a universe. I was like, oh my gosh, there's this whole world that exists. I had no idea. And once I saw it, I couldn't go back. So I left my corporate job at the end of 2023 and have just been focused on my coaching business full time. So it's been a lot of fun.
And now you're in a way that is like, last time when Vina came, Vina just say, oh, and she stays really busy, okay? Like, it's so many people booking her, she stay really busy. And I was like, oh, well, noted. So for you to just been doing this for a year and stay booked, that's amazing.
It has been a blessing. Yes. I've just been fortunate that to have support from somebody like Vina, who has really helped to network me, and Pace Morby, people like that. So I've also been very lucky in that way, that I've had people helped me to meet other people so I could grow my business.
Yeah. And I think when you finally find like what your true passion is and you actually developed in that, like it's life changing. And I think maybe that's what happened with you. Like you found out what it is that what your true calling is. And so after that, it's got to be easy, like, you know, because this is what you love to do. It's like they say, find what you love doing, and then you'll never have to work a day in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I like that. I know I saw, and we have not heard of this before, but we were reading a little bit about it, that you specialize, or you worked a lot with Clifton Strengths. I'm sorry. So for somebody like us who don't know exactly what that framework is, like, could you explain what it is, and how you help individuals like identify and leverage their strengths with this framework?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yes, especially when I say I used to call myself a Clifton Strengths coach, and then that was another thing where like nobody knows what that means.
Like, what is this?
Yes. So Clifton Strengths is a tool that I use. It's an assessment that people take. And what it tests them on is, what are the things you naturally do, think, and feel the most of? And specifically things that you can apply productively. So what do you do, think, and feel the most of? And the report tells you, these are the things you do, think, and feel the most of. These are the things you do, think, and feel the least of. And they call those things talents. And usually when you say the word talent, right, you think of like Michael Jordan, or, you know, like a Beyonce, right? You don't think of things you naturally do, think, and feel. But that's how this test describes talent. And it says everybody has talents. Everybody has things they do, think, and feel naturally. Like an example of a talent that can be productively applied is somebody that strikes up conversations with strangers at the grocery store or on an airplane. Yeah. I was like, I'm guessing at least one of you is that person. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's if but when I say that, you might not think like, that's not a talent. That's just who I am. That's what I do. And but it is. So Gallup is the one that created the assessment. A lot of people know Gallup because they have like global polls that they do. So a lot of people have heard of Gallup polls or Gallup surveys, and they created this assessment. But yeah, so they'll take that talent and say, not everybody does that. Not everybody strikes up conversations naturally like that. And that is absolutely something that you can strengthen and use to achieve your goals. So if you're in real estate investing and you're trying to raise capital, being able to strike up conversations is huge, right? Strike up conversation with strangers. If you're in any sort of a sales role, being able to talk to strangers is huge. And so it's like, what are the things that you're doing that some of them you already know you do, and some of them you probably don't realize because it's so ingrained in who you are. And the test helps you see those things. And usually people are like, wow, like it's weird to see myself on a page, or these things that I thought were weird about me are actually things that are unique and powerful about
what
what I
makes
have.
me special.
Yes.
Yeah.
So so that's the Clifton Strengths assessment, is really, what are the things you do think and feel the most of? Let's learn how to strengthen those things. And right, some are probably already strengths, but just because you do it a lot doesn't automatically mean it's a strength. And so the goal is, let's find those things you do the most of. Let's strengthen those things. And what probably one of my favorite things about the concept of Clifton Strengths and working from strengths is that traditional development is focused on what you don't have or who you're not. Like, oh, yeah, you're already good at all of these things. Don't worry about those things. What are you bad at? And let's try to strengthen the things that you're bad at. And and so that's why I like Clifton Strengths, is it's like, let's go from good to great. And there's so much research around why it's so important to focus on your strengths and elevate going from good to great rather than bad to okay. Like, you're not going to see results from going bad to okay. And it's not a participation trophy where it's like, nobody has any weaknesses, everybody's good at everything. Like, it's everybody has weaknesses. There are things we're just not good at, but don't pour your energy into those, growing those things. Build strategies. If something's a weakness or it's getting in your way, if you're not good at it and you need it, you have to build a strategy for how you can get around it or solve for that. But don't pour your energy into trying to turn that thing into a strength.
Yeah, because I was about to ask you about that. I was about to ask you before you finish about if you ever try to strengthen somebody's weaknesses. But then what you say make more sense, because something that we're talking about is that Rosa was talking about how she knows that one of her weaknesses is her procrastination. And,
we'll talk about that in a minute.
But she wanted to, by hearing her, it's like, you trying to improve that area. She's kind of like, don't focus on that part, because if it's bad, that's that. Focus on the good things that you have going on to make them great. So instead of thinking like, oh my God, I'm so good on this, but I'm just don't want, I want to be not a procrastinator. It's like, well, why don't you focus on the other thing? And maybe your procrastration will drift away or whatever, or it wouldn't be a problem anymore.
I think we were also talking about how a lot of times we know, or we think we know what our strengths are, and then one of the most dreaded questions we were talking, whenever you do a work interview, right? One of the most dreaded questions, even for anybody is Googling what to say, is like, what are your weaknesses? And for the most part, like, everybody around me except her, because she actually, you said you were like researching or doing.
Well, I practiced a lot.
She practiced a lot, but it's like, what are your weaknesses? And you kind of like, people don't really know what they're like. Now I know procrastination, but I don't know if that's necessarily a weakness, or that's just like a habit or limiting beliefs that I still have, that I'm like self-sabotaging myself. But I was wondering about that too. Like, we talk about strengths a lot, what about the weaknesses? And I like how you explain, like, we can kind of like go there, slowly, like, let's focus here, and then slowly we'll get to the weaknesses. Yes. So that's very interesting. I had never thought of it that way.
That's why you needed a strength coach.
That's why I needed you.
It's very freeing, and I love the way, like, and I'll use an example, like, just because you do think and feel the most of something, let's just stick with the example of striking up conversations with strangers. If, I don't know, you're striking up conversations with so many strangers and exchanging contact information with so many people that you're never following up or following through on any of the conversations, well, then that's probably not that talent showing up as a strength. That's actually showing up as a weakness if you're like creating these quick relationships but not doing anything with them.
Sustaining them. Yeah.
And so that's like, just because it is something you are talented at, it could still be showing up as a weakness and getting in your way. So there's like, it's very complex. I'm like, I don't want to throw too much at you, but I do want to hit on the procrastination thing that you said, because with Clifton Strengths, this is true. And this is true for a lot of things, which is something like procrastination is like, it always takes digging to figure out, well, what's causing the procrastination? Is it procrastination around certain things, right? Like, and sometimes when I'm working with clients, they might come to say, I procrastinate. What strength is that, right? There's no procrastination strength. And so it might be you procrastinate around certain things or in certain areas or certain situations. And then when we can understand the things you procrastinate at, that's then when we look at your most talented areas and say, oh, okay, if you procrastinate these things, why don't you pull on this, this, and this strength? And when you work from your talents to do that, you're probably not going to want to procrastinate as much because you're going to feel energized and it's going to feel like something you feel drawn to do rather than something you avoid doing.
Because like what you said earlier, you say we make excuses to do these episodes. To me, was like, not to me, but to you, it's like that. Because to you, it's like, I'm not doing this much because of procrastination.
Yeah.
So like you say, it's like, if you understand that, it's like, okay, I just procrastinate for certain things.
Yeah.
Then,
that's a biggest thing that I think recently, like, because I'm very into affirmations and how do I talk to myself and all that. So I did not want to say I procrastinate because I'm like, no, that's so negative. And recently I had to come to the realization that it's like, okay, you have to accept it.
Thank you.
Finally.
But
I
was talking to a friend of mine and I was like, you know what? I just have to say it. I procrastinate. And I've worked, and I realized that this has been going on for a while. I've worked with therapists. I've done hypnotherapy as well. And I read a lot of books, Atomic Habits. I'm into all of this. And it's like, what is it with me? And then I started noticing that I procrastinate a lot on mainly the things that are going to help me move forward. Like, I feel like if I didn't procrastinate on, like, even my real estate business, for example, right? I procrastinate a lot in that. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like I have some limiting beliefs that my subconscious mind is kind of coming out, and I'm self-sabotaging myself because I know for a fact, like, if I did the things I was supposed to do. So I'll write a to-do list, for example, and I have a big issue with this. I'll write a to-do list, and my therapist and I were working on this, and no matter what she said, I still kept doing it. But I had a to-do list, and I'll start writing what I have to do. But because I procrastinate, the list gets bigger, right? And so I'm writing, and I end up with 20 things. Well, guess how many of those 20 things get done? None. I tried doing little ones, like do 4 things or 5 things. But then as I'm writing, I'm like, oh, but I really, really have to do this one too. So maybe let me just one more, and I do it, and I still don't do it.
No.
I wait till last minute. That's what I do. I'm a last minute. I literally wait.
Yeah, she likes to do it then last minute and then rushing
and last minute. Like, but I'm really trying to work on that on myself. But it's just, I don't know. For me, I feel like I've hit like a roadblock, and it's like, I'm really trying to understand, like, what is it within me that continues to self-sabotage? Because if I did what I was supposed to do, I would be so much more successful. I would have so much more, fulfillment in a lot of aspects in my life, not just professional, but even family, friendships, and all that. So I'm really, I'm working on it, right?
Yeah.
But I haven't necessarily found like the thing.
And can I ask, like, when you start your day, do you start your day with a list, whether it's a mental or physical list of the things that need to get done for that day or that you want to get done? Or do you start your day kind of going where the day takes you and letting the day dictate your priority?
I think both. I think I've tried the method of starting, not mental, because I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna forget. I'll forget. So like last night, for example, right before I lay down, I was like, oh, tomorrow I have to do this. And so I grabbed a little notebook and I just wrote down like the main things, which were like 6-7 items that I had to do today. So I've tried it,
I use a calendar. Everything's in my calendar.
Yeah.
And I follow through with that. I don't go over, I don't go under. It's just within my calendar.
Ooh, good
so
for
I
you.
make sure that if I have to get done whatever that is, if it's not in my calendar, it won't get done. And I make sure I follow through with it. Like I told her yesterday, when we talked, I was like, well, I have a meeting until this time. After this time, you can come over. We can do this, because I'm super like with my time. Because like, how you were saying earlier, like, I know my strength is, well, when it comes to that, like, I'm a people's person and I talk to everybody and stuff like that. But I'm also really present. Like with my friendships and stuff like that, like everybody that I meet, I'm present. It's like, oh, let's hang out. I will be like, absolutely, let's do it. And I message you, hey, I'm free this day. What you're available to. Put it on my calendar, and that's that. So I'm looking forward to that. And all my friends is like that. Like I tell them, oh, you want to go out? Perfect. What day, what time? I put it on my calendar. So I'm really, so I just don't be like, oh, just meeting people. No, I'm present with it, and I make sure I put it on a calendar. I make sure we have it set day. We're going to do whatever we're going to be doing. Yeah. And I make sure to meet with all my friends at least once a month. All of them.
Wow.
And I have a lot of them. But I make sure to, hey, why don't you come this Wednesday? Okay, perfect. I see the other one that Friday. I see the other one that on Thursday. But I have,
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the organization. I used to think I feel like I'm a very organized person, but it's just something about me not getting things done,
Yeah.
or getting
You
them
should take
done last minute.
I know, like I have some guesses about what your strengths report would say, but you should take the assessment and I can give you
Yeah,
as
she
a
said you
follow-up.
will.
I
Yes.
literally was like, I'm going to take the assessment now because I want to know, because it's part of me just trying to find out what it is. And I know I believe a lot in like the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and all of that, right? So I know that I'm self-sabotaging. Like I'm aware, I'm very aware of myself. So I'm aware of that. So it's kind of like, okay, we know that, but now let's work through it. That's where I'm at in the working through it part, right? I don't know. I just feel like I'm gonna figure it out eventually.
And since we're talking about that, then we have this question right here. I would like to ask you. Say,
of course.
How does mindset play a role in unlocking one's potential? And what are some practical strategies? My accent.
Strategies.
I got you.
There you go. You use to help clients shift their mindset towards growth and achievements.
Okay.
Do we need to repeat the question because
it's really long? I know my thing.
I think I got it, but yes, you can repeat it.
Right? How does mindset play a role in unlocking one's potential? I guess that's
yeah. Let's start there. And then the second one was, I know, around strategies, but yes, I'll have you repeat it. So there's so much I could say about mindset. And I think probably the number one thing that I'll point to, and I think it ties really well with what we've been talking about so far, is I'm sure you both have heard about the concept of like growth mindset versus fixed mindset, or like abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. No?
Yeah,
what? Yes.
Maybe Rosa.
So yeah, you're our resident mindset podcaster. And so, yeah. Oh no, I was saying, Rosa, I know you said you like mindset a lot, so I'm not surprised you heard it. So like growth or abundance mindset is the concept of like working from a place of abundance. Like it's it's like asking, like, I'll try to give an example. So a growth abundance mindset versus fixed mindset and scarcity mindset, those kind of go together. So I'll give you a terrible like cheat example, but just to kind of actually, I will give you a good example. So I have two boys. They're 2 years old and 4 years old, like I mentioned. And when I was finding out, I could not wait to find out the gender of either of my kids. The earliest possible that I could test for gender, I tested. I just needed to know. I'm a planner. I wanted to do all the planning.
Thank you.
And so when I found out my second was a boy, like my first thought was disappointment, because I was like, I always wanted a daughter, and I was like, I don't know if we're gonna have a third, and and I was like, and boys, like they're gonna leave me one day, like who knows, all of that stuff. And so, but that was like a scarcity mindset, right? Because it's like that not enough, like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Like that's why they call it scarcity or fixed, because you're like coming from a place of deficit, like something is not enough and you're reacting to that. And so I shifted myself, and even like I have so much energy around supporting women, and like most women, I've had to do a lot of work on my own mindset and building self-esteem and things like that have been really hard. And especially to like push and make way for myself in coming from a corporate world that was very male dominated. Anyway, so I was like, I want to raise my daughters to be like strong, powerful women. And I was like, but I might not ever have daughters. And then I moved into abundance mindset. I was like, well, what could be possible for having two sons? And I was like, well, what the men today are not going to be the same men that exist when my boys are older. And so like, maybe they will actually have really good relationships with me if I raise them in a certain way, so that they don't, yes, if they leave me physically, we have like a strong relationship where I don't feel like they've just left their mom and never thought about her again and call her once every 3 months like my brother does to my mom, right? But I'm just like, I don't know what's possible. And what if, like, yes, I had energy around support, like the idea of making my daughters be strong women, but what if I raise my sons to be better men in the world today, like in the world, so that women don't have to fight as hard, and that women like that they create space for women. And I was like, I don't know, that's an example of an abundance mindset, because I was like, what could be possible with having, what can I do differently and what could be possible from having two sons. And so that like I constantly am doing those shifts when I'm like, oh no, this. And I ask myself like, well, what could be different? What if I changed into an abundance mindset or a learner mindset? And when I shift into that, it truly is like, it's very empowering. And that's why I love Clifton Strengths, because it's essentially the same thing. It's saying rather than thinking about what you don't have, it's like, let's look at what you do have and what's possible from there.
I love that. Yeah. Honestly, you got me with that part. I was like,
yeah.
I mean, come on, I don't have any weaknesses now, but I'm just we're just gonna think about those.
Well, no, but because I'm big into mindset and what you said in the abundance mindset, and now I've been practicing that a lot more about switching things around and kind of being like, okay, well, I had I have a duplex that I'm selling right now, and I had an issue come up with we're under contract and we're about to do inspections, and so I just randomly was like, let me look at the foundation part of the house, the crawl space. I had never looked at it, before, and I want to make sure everything's good. Well, it turns out it was bad, so with that came issues of like, now I have to pay, a lot of money to get somebody there before the inspection because this could throw away my whole sale. And so my first thing, it's like, freak, this is coming up. I got to pay this much money now. But then I switched and I was like, well, you know what? Oh my God, I'm so happy that I realized this before the inspection. What if this would have happened? Like, I would have never looked into it before, didn't have a chance to fix it. And then we went into inspection. This came out, threw away my whole sale, right? Yeah. So then I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy. Like, I am so lucky that I decided to look at this before. And now the people that I sell the house to is going to have a more sturdy house, and it's going to be great. And so I completely shifted my mindset on that. So now I see it more as like, okay, it was a blessing. I'm so glad that I looked at it. And Johnny, and I'm always telling Johnny about mindset issues. I was like, yeah. Yeah, whatever. Like,
because she put everything more spiritual and more like, well, the universe or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm a Christian. I just believe in God, and I don't be thinking
that's the universe.
Yeah, no.
That's what we call it. You call it different things.
Okay, but I'm not. I don't see things the same way. So it's like, she just want to put it all like, oh, a little bit. And I'm like, I don't know. To me, it's like, but I consider myself, more a realistic person. Like, I'm super like, that's what it is. Like, and I feel mindset. And I feel like until you don't be realistic about things, then you're gonna have a problem with accountability, and then you're gonna try to put things like, it's not about that, it's something else. And it's like, no, it might be just you. Like, maybe you just need to fix that. Yeah. But something what I was thinking on what you were saying also, and what I'm saying about the abundance mindset, it can also be created, I think, also by having the right people around.
100%.
Because what you were saying about finding out that your second son was a boy, I had the same problem. With the first one, it's like, well, it's a girl. Well, okay, we're gonna have another one. With the second one came a girl. We had a gender reveal, and I couldn't even cut the cake. I just ran crying. I went to the back of the rooms and I was just crying. And I remember that my fiance's brothers, they came running behind me. They're like, what's going on? And I was like, I'm having another girl. And I was just so disappointed, but I was also scared. It was more about girls, we go through so much. That's why it scared me the most. We go through so much. I went through a lot of like sexual abuses when you were really young in ages. So that, all that trauma came to that. And it's like, I don't want that to happen to my kids. And, all of that. And they were the one that helped me went to cross to the abundance mindset right there, because they were like, first of all, they were like, we're here to raise these kids together. We're going to pray together about this. We're not going to allow that nothing happens to her. And then they start telling me, you can be, with everything that happened to you, you can also help them. Maybe why don't you think about you being the person that you wished you had when you were young? And right there, it changed my mindset. Like, you know what? I went through the worst. I think I can help them maybe, skip the bad part. So having also the right people around you can help you switch to like
100%. Yes. If you're surrounded by people with a scarcity mindset, it's going to send you into scarcity mindset, and vice versa. When you're surrounded by that, yes, they lift you up and help you shift. And thank you for sharing. It's beautiful. And even in just like hearing your story is like, oh, like I love men. I'm married to a man. I have two, right? Like I have a brother. I love men.
Yeah.
Like, let me say that first.
Yeah. But like, men are the ones that start wars. Men are the ones that are typically like the murderers and doing like, the most likely to do like be involved in sexual abuse. And so I'm like, I want to raise my men to be better men in this world so that that's just less. And so together we're just gonna raise beautiful children to make the world a better place.
Yes, I heard this phrase that said, because I have a daughter and a son. So I have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, rub it in, why don't you?
I know, yeah. Thank you, Rosa.
but I saw this phrase that said, I want to raise my son in a way that women don't have to heal from. So I want to raise a man that women don't have to heal from. And I was like, oh, that's so powerful,
That's so
I was
good.
thinking about that as you were saying how you shifted your mindset when it became to raising sons.
Yes.
I think raising daughters has a huge impact in the world, but I think raising sons has a bigger impact as well.
Yeah.
They're pretty right there. You know what I'm saying? We both have different roles, women and men, in this world.
And we're both needed.
So
yes.
I think the world would be a better place if we raised better men and better women.
And I truly believe that behind every great man, there is an amazing woman. And I think that your kids have the best one right there behind them, teaching them the right thing. Because when I tell you, like my fiance and his siblings, I'm like, yeah, your mom can be whatever, but I know she did something right, and it was that raising you guys. And she's an amazing girl. I mean, she's an amazing woman. I love her today. But like seeing her sons, I'm like, yeah, you did good. Like,
well, you are engaged to one of them. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I have 2 babies by him, so yes.
Yeah. So with people that have the scarcity mindset, for example, like what are some things or strategies that you, I guess, how do you help them like shift the mindsets? I know it's not a one day thing where it's like, okay, let me tell you this, and from now on you're just going to be abundance everywhere. But how can they start, becoming more into the abundance growth mindset if they're like in a fixed mindset?
Yeah, that's a great. As you say that, I'm like, oh, there's this like little. I'll send it to the two of you too. It's there's 2 different people that have done work on mindset. One is Carol Dweck, and she has a book called Mindset. And then I can't remember the name of the other woman, but she made this. She calls it learner judger. And she made a little like roadmap of like if you start to get stuck down the judger path, like how you can course correct and go back down to the learner path. But the best, really the easiest strategy is to get curious. Like when all else fails, or if you don't know what else to do, if you're stuck in a scarcity mindset, ask curious questions. Like if you are like, well, what if this wasn't true? Or what could be possible if I thought about this differently? Or what's really behind this? So it's like just asking yourself some curious questions to try to seek to understand rather than accepting it at face value. That's the easiest way to try to shift yourself out, because even the story you were telling about finding out you had a daughter, it was like you had people around you that got curious with you, right? And that allowed you to shift out of it. So it's like sometimes when it's just you getting curious with yourself, like, where's this coming from? Or what is this? Or what if I looked at this in a different way? Or what would need to be true for me to view this in a different way? Things like that, I think is the easy button to start to shift yourself out.
Okay. Yeah, that is true. I never thought about it that way. Getting curious, because I do that a lot now. I do that a lot where I'm going through things or whatever, and I'll start asking myself, okay, how can I change the story that I'm assigning to this experience? Like this is happening to me. How can I change it to so that it better supports me versus put me in a negative spiral, right?
Yeah.
So I do that. See, I'm great at other things. Just the procrastination part. It's like so. Real quick and I know a lot of people that deal with procrastination is not just me, but I want to say, like, what are some, if you have somebody that comes to you like me, what are some things the first things that you would say, like, okay, strategies to help them overcome that? And what do you think, where do you think procrastination comes from?
So the first thing that came to mind as you were saying that is oftentimes there's a lot of reasons to procrastinate. Sometimes it can be something like maybe you have ADHD. I'm not saying you, right? Just generally speaking, like sometimes procrastination can just be due to ADHD or other mental health issues like anxiety, depression that you might not be aware of. So like let's put that in one category where like there's just stuff that could be happening more like clinically that could be impacting procrastination. So let's set that category to the side. And when I think about when it comes to like, I look at so much through the lens of strengths, but a lot of times what I see when I'm coaching with people about procrastination and I'm looking through the lens of their strengths, oftentimes they're procrastinating on things that don't energize them, or they're procrastinating on it because they're trying to do it in a way that's de-energizing. So it's either they're not energized by the thing itself that they're procrastinating on, or they're trying to force themselves to go about it in a way like if you are a person, right, that loves talking to people but you're behind a desk for 10 hours a day, you might procrastinate on certain things because you need that human interaction. So you might need to find a way to get the things done that you need to get done, but that allow you to fill. I always say like strengths need to be fed. Like if you don't feed them, you kind of feel de-energized. So it's like you probably aren't either working from your strengths or you're doing something that's not allowing you to work from your strengths. Like maybe it's not the right thing for you to be focusing on. So it really depends on what it is that you're procrastinating at, but it's looking at the like, is the thing I have to do de-energizing me, or is it the way that I'm doing it that's de-energizing, and do I need to look at a different way of doing it? So that's probably the number one thing that I would suggest. If you know it, you're kind of not checking any of these other boxes that I mentioned, then it's like, yeah, look at the thing, like try to identify the patterns in the things that you procrastinate at. And then that's where it's like, okay, I'm noticing I procrastinated these types of things. Is it that I don't like these things? Or is it that I just am going about them the wrong way and I could try a different way of going about it?
That makes a lot of sense.
Something that motivates you to do it.
Yeah, something that motivates me to do it. Okay, that's pretty cool. So out of all of the, you've coached a lot of entrepreneurs.
We all have those words.
With
obviously we know that my word, what was that one?
Strategy.
There you go, which I'm not going to even try to repeat. Here's is entrepreneurs. So yeah.
It's that one and murder.
Yeah.
Come again?
So you've coached a lot of
entrepreneurs.
Thank you. And when coaching, what are some, I wanted to know, like, what are some of the, I guess, most common mindset roadblocks that you encounter? So after you've coached so many, I think now you're at a point where you can kind of like, or
yeah, this will happen to this person. This will happen.
So like the biggest mindset roadblocks that
entrepreneurs
face.
Yeah. I would say so there's two things. Before I hit the roadblock one, the number one thing that I see when I'm coaching with entrepreneurs, when I'm talking about strengths, is they're over 50% of the entrepreneurs I coach with are high futuristic. That's the name of the theme. And people that are high in this futuristic theme can naturally project out. They think about and envision what's possible for the next month, year, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. And I think like my theory on that is there's a lot of risks to being an entrepreneur. And so when you see what's possible, it's exciting and it makes you want to take risks and go for that because you're excited about that vision that you hold. So that's just a common theme I see for a lot of entrepreneurs. As far as roadblocks that I see a lot of, I think the main thing that I've identified, especially as I've just been around a lot of, I spend a lot of time with people in the real estate investing space.
Oh, yeah.
And I see, but I think that this is true whether you're in real estate investing or a different type of entrepreneur. But I think a lot of times people see what somebody else has achieved, like the destination that somebody else has arrived at, and they say, wow, I want that too, right? Like that, I want that too. And the biggest roadblock that I see is that they try to follow the other person's roadmap to get to that destination rather than building their own roadmap based on their own strengths, their own values, their own interests. Like you can still arrive at the same destination And you can use somebody else's strategies to inform your roadmap, but don't try to replicate what somebody else has done, because it's going to be de-energizing. You're probably going to procrastinate on it. You're going to face more obstacles. So that's probably the number one roadblock is not building a roadmap that's like customized to
like
your strengths, your values, things like that.
I never thought about it that way. But you know what? I'm a real estate investor too. And I think I completely identify with what you just said, because I see other names such as Vina, for example, or, you know, in the real estate world. And I'm always like, oh, I wanted to that. Right. And then I'm like, so that is a very.
So then you get onto like, oh, she did it this way. She's doing this thing. She's saying this thing. I have to do it that way, instead of just, like she said, like get the strategies, like, you know, like, it's good to do it this way, but then you go through your own path, your own way of making it through.
Yeah, that is true. Do you have a question?
Not really.
Because I have a million.
She's like, okay, good.
Well, I was gonna say, so with that being said, so how do you specifically help entrepreneurs, like, I guess, get over those setbacks and those roadblocks, you know, or because a lot of us, we also have a big like fear of failure. Like, how do you help get across that?
I thought it was great. I didn't hear any word fumbles, but I did enjoy the blah blah at the end.
I don't know what's happening to me today.
Well, you have so many questions that you're trying to make them.
Yeah, you're trying to get them out. So what I'll say, I feel like when I coach with people, they will show up to the session, and if they're meeting with me for the first time, at least, and they show up to the session, they're like, okay, tell me about me, you know, because I have a report that I've looked at and all of that. But most of the session, they do a lot, like they do more talking than I do in the session. And really the 80% of the time that I spend with people when I'm coaching with them is just digging into them, and not only digging into them to understand them, but digging into what the real problem is. So somebody might come to me, and I'll give a real estate investing example. So are you familiar with Pace Morby's like avatars?
Not the avatars part. I just heard about it.
Okay.
I was talking about avatars.
So he's created these like 19 different real estate avatars, and one of them he calls direct to seller visionary, and that's a role where that's like in wholesaling, if you're wholesaling in real estate investing. So you're door knocking, you're cold calling, you're just trying to see if there's anybody that's basically willing to sell their home to you, but you're going about it through door knocking and cold calling. That's a hard job, by the way, right? Like I wish that upon nobody, but there's people out there that are good at it. For me, I would rather work anywhere else than do something like that. It's just not my skill set. And so, but I've had people that come to me and are like, okay, this is the place that I'm starting this, but it's not working for me. Like I'm finding that I'm procrastinating on cold calling, and I'm just miserable. I just can't force myself to do it. Or when I do it, I'm inconsistent at it. So then we dig, and it's like, okay, well, where did this come from? Why did you choose this? Why did you choose to go this route or this avatar? Right. So we're trying to understand why they're doing this to begin with. And then we dig even more. Right. And so eventually we find out that the problem is, they didn't know where to start, and they saw Pace in a video say you should start here. So they started there, and they've been spending 4 months there not seeing results. And they thought that by coming to me, I would help them create a better strategy for being a wholesaler. But instead, I'm like, you actually need you shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing something else, because clearly it's not working for you. And so like, yes. And so now we're like, well, what are your goals? Why are you even doing real estate to begin with? Why did you, what drew you to real estate? What are your long-term goals? And they might say, oh, well, my long-term goal is to get into multifamily real estate, or maybe it's to own a portfolio of single family homes or whatever. And so when we start like understand the long-term goal, and it's like, maybe you started with the wrong strategy. So we'll build a new strategy that's based on their strengths and their interests and their values. So that's just an example of, it's basically, we spend so much time digging into, if you have this goal or this roadblock, like where's it coming from? Why is it important to you? And the problem that you came to me with is probably not the problem, is probably just the surface level. And there's like a core problem that we really actually need to solve. and then we build a solution together. So yeah, that's, I don't know if I was very clear in the way I described it, but that's typically what it looks like when I work with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that was. I love this because I think I had never thought about like our strengths, or like in a sense like that of like, because when you think of strengths and you think of like working and jobs, right, and interviews, and so what are your strengths in a sense of like the workplace, right? Are you analytical? Are you, work like strengths in that sense? But never thought of like what you, like the example we've been talking today about being able to just have a conversation, talk to people, right? I never consider that like, oh, that's a strength, because like you said, it's so ingrained. Like, did you ever think about it, that was a strength?
Oh yeah, I'm really social and really.
I never thought about it that way. So I really want to take the Clifton's strength
assessment
to see, because I think I'm going to be surprised. And I was just telling her earlier that like I like those aha moments where you're like, oh my god, like I never thought of that about myself. So I'm excited to take it and find out.
And it was like a lot of people that come to you, that's how normally they come out. They're like, oh my god, didn't know I was good at this, and now I could be this person. I could be be more comfortable about being myself. Because that's some things that, like you said earlier in the podcast, that some people have some strength that they might think that is no strength. It's just, it makes them weird, or they just, they wish they could stop doing that. And it's like, wait, why don't we take a different approach about this? Like, that weirdness could actually be what make you get to whatever it is that you want to get to.
I think that goes hand in hand with just unlocking your fullest potential. How can you do that if you really don't know what it is that you are just amazing at, right? What are your strengths and what are you really good at? And so when you find those out, exactly, like even weaknesses, I don't necessarily, like what we were mentioning earlier, I don't think they're necessarily weaknesses. I think that they can also become strengths, right? And
I'm gonna tell you this, in the corporate world, you're supposed to, when they ask about your weaknesses, you're supposed to give a weakness, but then make it sound how that weakness at the end of the day still be good for it.
Yeah, it's a fake weakness.
So, so it's like, you cannot even be like, oh my God, boss, I suck at this. No. It's kind of like
I'm
I was
too
telling
smart.
Her, it's like I was telling her, like, oh, delegating people work for them to do, right? Because I like to make sure that everything gets done in this way. And it's like somehow you're turning to be a good thing. But it's like so yeah, that's something that you learn in the corporate world, because everything is kind of like, you can never allow yourself to be bad at something. It's kind of like, like, oh, she's like this, but it's because of this greatness.
It's like, I'm a perfectionist. That's why I don't delegate. I like things done the right way.
And people say that, and it's
100%.
But I think this is amazing. I think what we've talked about today has been great. I definitely feel like I've gained a lot of. Okay, what did you say? Because there was a lag on. There you go. There you go. Okay. Did you say something? We had a lag on our end.
No, I heard. Yes, no, I was just laughing about your examples in the corporate world, because I did a lot of interviewing and helped with interview structures. And yes,
I used to say that too, because I Googled, right? Because I didn't know what to say. And so I said that. Well, I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah, they're always trying to make you say something about
a lot of people say the same thing, because nobody really knows what to say when it comes to, like, I'm not going to go on a job interview and say, well, I procrastinate. That's my weakness.
I don't think that it's that nobody knows what to say. It's just that you don't know how that is going to impact you negatively. So you don't want to admit that.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're trying to make it something positive out of the negative, like they take it. It's just trying to make everything sound good. So if our listeners, so we can close, we already have 50 minutes in. We don't want to take too much time out of your time. If our listeners take one piece of advice from today's episode that you would like them to, I hope that after this episode, you learn this. What would it be?
And you start applying it.
So the first thought that came to my mind when you said that is, what would be possible if you started focusing on who you are instead of who you're not? So that is the number one thing that I would want people to take away, is there's so much power in who you are, and we get so caught up in who we're not or who our partner is not, right? And it's like, how can you embrace more of who you are and who other people are in your lives, rather than focusing on who they're not?
That's so true. Just hearing Rosa, you know how these there are people making parodies about women's podcasts, so they're like, that's how Rosa was. But it's so true. I mean, what you were saying is like, maybe you want to be like, yes.
I tried doing that the other day with Vina, and she was like, Rosie, you are not cool enough to do that. I was like, I know, you're right. I tried. It didn't work.
You're like, let me get back to
I tried it. I tried it on for size. It didn't fit. Yeah. So that's the number one thing I would say. It's very empowering. And then so of course, taking the Clifton Strengths Assessment, the reason that I say that is because specifically, Rosa, you'd made that comment about like making it actionable. What I think is really cool about the report, there's several different reports you can take. There's a $60 report that's like the most robust one that you can take. And the reason that I like it is because it gives you actionable things that you can do with it. Like, I don't believe in just nice to know information. I want it to be actionable and translate. I'm a coach, right? I want to help translate it to outcomes. And so if you take the report, it will say, okay, your number one theme is this. This is what it probably looks like for you. And here are some blind spots you probably have because of these strengths. And here are 5 different examples of how you can strengthen this even more. And that's what I think is really cool, is those like suggested action steps. So you can take those things where you might look at your report and say like, yeah, yes, I do these things. I didn't really realize it, but what can I do with that? And the report tells you, oh, here's 5 different things you can do with it. So it's very like low price point, right? $60 just to take the assessment, and you don't retake it. You take it once. And then there's so many resources around it, just starting with the report. They do podcasts on it. There's tons of free resources where you can go deep into Clifton Strengths. So I would say that's if you want to learn more about who you are and instead of who you're not, that's the Clifton Strengths Assessment. It's just an easy place to start with that. And it's almost like seeing yourself on paper and understanding like, oh, okay, yes. The number one thing I hear from people who take their assessment is like that it's given them permission to be who they are. And that always like just really gets me when they say that. I'm like, yes, like you're perfect just the way you are. It's just, sometimes we feel like external pressure makes us feel like we're not enough as we are.
And now with the social media pressure.
I love that because I feel like knowing your strengths, knowing all of this information, you can really leverage all of that information to just really, I guess, be successful at whatever it is that you want to do, or find out what's the best way for you, the way you work. So it's like a customized thing, because you read a lot about how to be great and how to do this and do this and do that. But when you actually put it to who you are, because we're all different, we all learn different, we all see things differently. So something as customized as like that, like I think it'll really, really help people just elevate themselves. So
yeah. So Rosie,
yes,
where do our followers, like our listeners, can follow you, find you, know about you?
Yeah. Oh, great question. My Instagram handle is at the Rosie Noel. And then if you go there, I have a free Facebook group. So I do free calls to educate people on Clifton Strengths. I've been trying to do like a few a month. So I do free calls on Clifton Strengths, and I just circulate information there in general on Clifton Strengths. And then there's all of my links are in my Instagram bio, but if you go to my website, rosienoel.com, you can order the assessment. You can see my one-on-one coaching and group coaching that I offer. So there's a ton of different, and I also just recently launched a vault of all of my recordings and a bunch of Clifton Strengths resources. So cool. I'm building out I used to just do one-on-one, and I'm kind of building out different things depending on what each person needs and what price point they're interested in too.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been great. I'm so happy we did this.
Yeah, it was nice to learn about you, learn about what you do, and get to meet you. Vina spoke greatly about you, and that's why I was like, yes, absolutely, we're going to invite her over, and thank you for accepting being here today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. You both have such good energy. So I feel like I'm leaving this call being like, ooh, you put gas in my tank today. So thank you for that.
I love that.
Thank you. I hope this is not the end. Again. Who knows? Maybe in the future you would have an opening to do another episode and we can focus on something else. So
I would love to. Or I could take you both through your strengths on an episode. Yes. So we could, there's a lot we could do there.
I know for fact I'm taking
Rosa is like, listen.
I'm taking my assessment. And I'm going to, the next time we talk, I'm going to keep you posted on my procrastination.
I love it.
We'll ask our listeners if that's something they would like to, because if they're like, what, yes, let's hear about y'all weaknesses and everything like that, maybe we can jump on something else like a part 2 of this.
I'm so excited. Well, thank you so much, Rosie, for being here.
Yeah, thank you again.
Your time. I'm excited for our listeners to see this. Please, our listeners, follow her. We're going to link all of your information, so no excuse. Thank you.
I hope you have a great rest of your
ladies.
day.
Yes.
Thanks so much. You too. It's great to know you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This episode was amazing.
Yes.
I had a lot of fun, and it was so good to learn more into depth about that.
Right.
I honestly didn't even know that was something that people do.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Like, you know, like,
well, there are a lot of assessments that you can take out there.
No, yeah.
But like this specific one, you know, especially for business owners or entrepreneurs, I think it's amazing. But, you know, anybody in general, because like what she was talking about, some of these things, like just having the ability to open up conversations and stuff, it's one.
Exactly.
You know? I never thought about that. I think this was great. So I'm really excited for our listeners. Hopefully you guys get something from this episode and it helps you achieve your goals, unlock your potential. I'm excited. So remember to follow us on our social media at Latinas with a Mic, my personal one at Just Another Isela,
and at Janifil.
Remember to subscribe and comment. Let us know what you think. We want to know. We are actually thinking of doing more interviews like this. So let us know. You know, what do you guys want to hear? Who do you guys want to see?
And who you would like us to invite? I think that, you know, one day I think I called you like, and I was like, hey, which famous person we can do? Like, who is out there that we want to hear about? Exactly. So just let us know, like, hey, it would be nice if you invite so tag them under our podcast or something, and we will absolutely reach out to them. And who knows, they might accept and come over, and we can talk to them about whatever it is that y'all would like to learn about.
So to finish the episode, remember to
be kind, love one another, and don't be stupid.
Bye.